नहीं होता
अंदर अंदर करते हैं ना। यहाँ पे ऑफिस की बातें भी लग करने देखा है ना।
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Please do rename yourselves and mute yourselves if you're not speaking.
All right, so it's time. Shall we start?
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam, walaikum salam. Ji.
We have students still joining, so if you do not mind, shall we start after 5 minutes?
Let's start. They can join. Those who are, why should we penalize those who are on time?
Sure, sir. No worries. Thank you.
All right. So, shall I just start, or you want to say something? This is the whole group, right?
Assalamualaikum, Amir sir.
Waalaikum salam, Tajuddin. So, can I just start?
Yeah, just you can give a brief intro and what are you going to
Correct. Great. So, thank you so much. Thanks so much, the foundation, for inviting me. I am delighted to be here for several reasons. One is the fact that this is something that I have always worked for. I've always wondered if we can get a lot of youngsters to get ready for the law exam. And I failed miserably in the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm so delighted and so proud of the fact that your foundation, Hum Foundation, has been able to get so many students into this program. And obviously, several of these students are very good and very bright and will make it through the law set. So that is a big achievement. The other reason I'm delighted to be here, and I'm here, is because of Tabassum, Kutia Tabassum. She asked me to be here and address all of you. So I am here. I cannot say no to her at all. I'm here, and I'm so happy and glad to be along with all of you. My introduction, those of you who can, I hope and I wish that all of you are able to hear me clearly. Even if you don't see me, it is okay, as long as you hear me well. I'll just assume that you're hearing me. If there is any problem, you will let me know, right? So, by introduction, my name is Amirullah Khan. I am an economics professor. I teach economics at various places, and the relevant place for you is that I teach economics at Nalsar in Hyderabad. I have earlier taught law and economics at the National Law School in Bangalore. But National Law School, the Nalsar in Hyderabad, and I've been teaching economics now for some time. And therefore, I know I have some interest in the legal profession. I also teach another course called Law and Economy. Those of you who will join the law program, you will study economics in your first year and law and economics in your third year or fourth year. So that is where maybe some of you will be my students again. I have a PhD in economics. I've done a lot of work on law and economics for the finance ministry. I belong to the civil service. I am an IAS officer of the 1993 batch, but then I resigned and now I'm teaching. That's my introduction. And what I'm going to talk about to all of you over the next few days will be that one aspect of your law exam, which is called current affairs or general knowledge. The first thing that I have to tell you is that there is no syllabus for current affairs, or there is no syllabus for general knowledge. The syllabus is everything. You can be asked a question on anything that the examiner feels is important. So therefore, it is very important for all of you to be very well prepared, which means that you have to prepare yourself from the best source for information on current affairs. Now, I want all of you to be very active on the chat window. I hope all of you know what a chat window is, right? So I want all of you to keep writing on the chat window, right? All the questions that I ask you, you should write on the chat window. So my first question is, and this is open to anybody to answer, which is the best source for studying current affairs or general knowledge? Very good. So Harisa has answered it already, Ali has answered it. Oh, so all of you know that, right? That is the only source. For all of you, very good answer. The only source, the best source is the newspaper. Now, which newspaper should you read? That's the next question. You're all saying newspaper. Mujtaba says the Hindu. Rahman says social media. Oh, very good. Safar is right. No, Fazal is right. One is not sufficient. Okay. So all of you again are writing the right answer. But the advantage today with the internet is that you can read 20 newspapers because all of that is available. When we were studying, then we used to get one newspaper at home. So some of us could afford to buy two newspapers. So that time we were all told you study the Hindu and you do one pink newspaper. But for all of you now, all newspapers are available for free. So you can follow any newspaper. But what happens is that the primary source of information should be one or two newspapers that you're familiar with. Which newspapers should that be? That is entirely up to you. Don't worry about what I give you as advice of what someone else. Read any two newspapers. One should be a normal, regular newspaper like Times of India, Hindustan Times, Hindu, etc. And one should be a business newspaper. What are the big business newspapers in India? My next question. Anybody? You know the name of a few business newspapers? Very good. Safa says Economic Times. Another name? Any other name? No? Business Standard. Shabir. Yes. Sakhar says don't know. But Economic Times, Business Standard, Financial Express, Business Line, Live Mint. These are all business newspapers. From any of these, you can follow any of these papers. My favorite newspapers these days are Business Standard, Live Mint, and ndtv.com. Those are the three newspapers I read. But there is one magazine that I want all of you to read. It is a weekly magazine, and that is, in my opinion, a must reading for all of you. And that you will see on the chat window. I will write is theeconomist.com. You should read one international publication, and the best one that I recommend is economist.com. You can read New York Times also, you can read Washington Post also, but economist.com is a very good magazine to read. Don't spend too much time, but read it and get into that habit. Not just now. You should read this forever. When you become a lawyer, when you are starting practice, when you become a judge, whatever, this habit should stay. Okay, so this is as far as your reading is concerned. I write for a couple of newspapers. The one paper that I write for is the Live Mint, which is a business newspaper of the Hindustan Times. So I write for that, and that is why I say that is my favorite newspaper. Okay, you can go and look it up, and you will know what I'm saying. All right. So, can you name any other weekly You have all named daily newspapers, and I have named you one weekly magazine. Can you name any other weekly magazine that you can think of? India Today, okay. Ashish says India Today. I've sent you a link. You can read one of my columns on labor law, and that will give you the other columns that I write, mostly on health, but you can read that. So Outlook, very good, Abdul Sami. Andhra Patrika Anwar, okay. So the most useful one for all of you is something called the EPW. Anyone knows what EPW stands for? There is another one which is called, it is so simple that when you read the name, you know it is a weekly magazine. It's called The Week. But EPW is the Economic and Political Weekly. Got it? All of you? The Economic and Political Weekly. It is India's best weekly magazine for the last 60 years. Again, it is not something that you need just for your entrance exam, but you will use it when you join the law college. Afterwards also, it is one of the best. Like The Economist is one of the best magazines in the world, the EPW is one of the best magazines in India. Okay, so that is my recommendation for what you should read. Now, let us come to current affairs. What do you mean by current affairs? Current affairs are things that are happening today. The most important thing that is happening now. My next question. Yes, that's right, Fazal. My next question is, all of you are hopefully reading the newspapers. What is the most important issue in the newspapers today? Today's newspaper. Health. Okay, Ali. Sahar, COVID, very good. Everybody says health, corona, COVID. Anything else? Olympics, excellent, Sahar. What else? What else was there in the newspaper today? The newspaper was not full of COVID and parliament session. Films, very nice. State news, crime, very right. Yunus, projects, excellent. Pegasus, excellent. Yeah. Court news, excellent. Affan and Rashad. All right. These are all important news. Recent Olympics. I have written farmers. Are farmers in the news? Yes, isn't it? Why are farmers in the news? What are the farmers doing? Agitation. Why are they agitating? Farm bill. How many farm bills? 3 farm. Excellent. So, why am I asking you these questions? Because I want you to focus on certain issues that are most important today. And Fazal is very right that the most important issue in the farm bills is regarding the MSP. What does MSP stand for? Do you see what I am doing? I am trying to teach you. I can't teach you current affairs. Nobody can teach you current affairs. But what I am trying to do is no, Shabbir, it is not minimum selling price. What I'm trying to do is to try to teach you how to think, how to guess which questions will come. And current affairs is about getting the right thing. Khatija has given the right answer, and so has Fadal now. So this is how you have to think, that today's most important issue is farm. One of the important issues is farm laws. The farm laws are 3 in number. You should know which are the 3 farm laws that are being changed. But the most important issue that farmers are discussing is the minimum support price. Yes, sure. One other issue is reservation for OBC. What amendment of the Constitution is the OBC amendment? What number? Anyone? States guest powers. That's right, Fadal. But what is which number of Constitution? How many times has the Constitution been amended so far? The latest amendment yesterday is the OBC amendment. Which one is that? What number is that? Not 104 so far? Not 165? Yeah? Below 200 is right, Fadal. Very good. That is right. But what is the number? So this is the 127th amendment. 127, 127. This tells you how many times the Constitution has been amended. So this way, if you study, one, you will know how many times the Constitution has been amended, and you will also know what is the number of the Constitution amendment for OBC reservation. There was one more very important amendment that was passed a few years ago. What was that? That amendment that was passed a few days ago, right? Was another important constitution amendment that came up recently was relating to one very important aspect of the economy. Can you guess which one? It is also known as the 101st Amendment of the Constitution. Not retrospective tax. That's a good answer, but it is wrong. Shabbir's answer is right, that it is the GST amendment. Right? Yes. Yes, Harish. The GST amendment, the 101st Amendment, was the last major constitution amendment. What was the 126th Amendment? 126th Amendment was also on reservation in the Lok Sabha, right? On SC, ST and Anglo-Indians. You know that provision that exists for how many SCs and STs should be there in Lok Sabha and how many in the state assemblies. That was passed as the 126th amendment of the Constitution. All right. So that is something that you also, the GST amendment number is 101. Okay, Fazal? GST was 101st Amendment. So this is one, the two president nominated seats for Anglo-Indians, Muhammad Salahuddin, for that is the 126th Amendment. Now, you see, there are some very important amendments to the Constitution that were made. 127th is important because it happened just now. That is why 101 is important because it was such a big change in the tax system. There was something called the 73rd Amendment. What was that? What was that about? You know, when we talk about major amendments to the Constitution, we always talk about 73rd and 74th Amendment. Two amendments were made together. Anybody remembers that? Very good, Ashish. Panchayat Raj. You know, this happened 25 years ago, but Panchayat Raj or 30 years ago, but Panchayat Raj was a major amendment. Before that, there was something called the 42nd Amendment. That was also very important in the history of India's constitutional development. The 42nd Amendment is very important, particularly for all of you who want to be lawyers. What was that? The 42nd Amendment was very right, Majid, very right, Mubin, not just socialist. It also added secular. The two words that were added to India were that from a sovereign democratic republic, the preamble now said that India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. It made another small change which most people don't know, and that was when it said unity of the nation, it changed that to unity and integrity of the nation, right? Got it? You should all know the preamble well, and therefore the preamble changed in the 42nd Amendment in 1976. One was that it made India a socialist and secular republic, and it said that it is not just the protection of the unity of the nation, but also the unity and integrity of the nation. All right. So that is as far as, very right. It is also called a mini constitution. And you know, the Keshavan and Bharti case that came up later, the Minerva Mills case that came, these are all cases that came after the 42nd Amendment was passed. Okay, so that is as far as the current issue on reservation is concerned. So the first issue that I talked about was the farm sector, agriculture. What is happening there? Why are people talking about the farm sector? What is GST? All of those issues are very important for you to understand and remember. Okay, that is one of that will be a very important part of your reading and your understanding. In the farm laws, there were 3 laws that have been passed. What are the 3 laws? The first law is called the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act. The second is called Farmers Agreement of Price Assurance Act. And the third was the Essential Commodities Act. Okay. So 3 acts have been amended. One is the Farmers Produce Act. The second is the Farmers Price Assurance Act. And the third is the Essential Commodities. So these are the 3 laws that we should remember. There is a cabinet reshuffle issue, but you know, it's good that you point out a cabinet reshuffle issue. So what might happen is that there might be a question saying who is the new railway minister, because now we have a new railway minister. Right? Things like that. But basically, you don't have too many issues. You won't have too many questions from pure politics. But this is an important point that you should remember, right? These are the three laws, Fazal. These are the three laws. Karan Rijiju, one of the most confusing things about India is who the new ministers are. So sometimes it becomes very confusing, and the new law minister is somebody called Kiren Rijiju. He's a lawyer from Arunachal Pradesh, and he has become the new law minister. Okay. All right. So that is as far as the farm bills are concerned. Minimum support price you should know. Fazal, why is 5th August important? What happened on 5th August? Oh, okay. Kashmir, yeah. Last year, right? Yes. Oh, yes. That is what happened last year. Article 370, Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir become, yes, that's right. 1 year completed. They became union territories. Ladakh became the 3rd union territory. So that is another issue. Very important. Very good that you point out that issue. So, therefore, there is this question: who is the new health minister? Because everybody, all of you said health is very important, and health is the major issue. Does anyone know who the health minister of India is? I used to ask this question whenever I went on television during COVID. And I used to always suddenly ask this question. So how many of you know the health minister? And it was very interesting that a lot of people never knew who the health minister was. And now also a lot of people don't know who the health minister is except Ashish. Uzair and Harisa are talking about the poor old fellow who got kicked out. And in the new reshuffle, Harshvardhan was kicked out, and Mansukh Mandavia became the new health minister. The big ministers who were thrown out were Prakash Javadekar and Ravi Shankar Prasad. And Mansukh Mandavia replaced Harshvardhan as the health minister. There is another question that emerges again from the problems that we are saying, and that is because the farm laws are important. Then it is perfectly possible that somebody will ask you who the agriculture minister is. Again, nobody knows the agriculture minister. Does anyone remember who the agriculture minister is? Yes, very good, Maji. Very good. I'm glad that you are one person who has heard his name. His name is Narendra Singh Tomar. He is the new agriculture. Okay, who's the finance minister? That is easy. Excellent. Home minister, even more easier. Amit Shah. Defense. Who's the defense minister? Rajnath. Excellent. And who is the foreign minister? Ravi Shankar? No, no. Amjad is right. It is Jai Shankar. Yeah, Sushma Swaraj died long ago. After Sushma Swaraj died, and it was really a sad death. Because, she was among our better ministers. Her death was really a sad death for me, because I also knew her pretty well. But after Sushma Swaraj died, then Jai Shankar became the new foreign minister. Okay. Who is the education minister? Because there is another thing, which is the new education policy. So one of the things that the new education policy did was that it changed the name of the ministry from Ministry of HRD to the Ministry of Education. Right? So who is the education minister of India? Yes, Amjad, Ramesh Pokhriyal was again thrown out. And in India, this is in the rest of the world, this doesn't happen. In India, ministers get changed without knowing why they are getting changed. They don't know, we don't know, they just get kicked out. And Ramesh Pokhriyal was thrown out, and the new minister is one fellow called Dharmendra Pradhan. Okay. Reason Dharmendra Pradhan is important is because of the new education policy. So there might be a question. Remember the name Dharmendra Pradhan. Okay. So this is as far as minister. I don't think any other minister is important. There are 80 ministers. You can't. Nobody even knows 2 ministers' names, so you can't be expected to know more than that. But these 4 or 5 ministers are important, and that is why, if you know their names, that is a good thing. Who is the Vice President of India? Who appointed Education Minister? Rahman. All ministers are appointed by the Prime Minister. Very good. Venkaiah Naidu is the Vice President, which makes him also the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Right? Who is the Speaker in the Lok Sabha? Yes. Om Birla is the Speaker in the Lok Sabha. Very good. Who's the President of India? Very often people don't know the presidents. Ram Nath Kovind. Okay, not bad. He is about to go now. It will be interesting to see who the next president will be. Who is the Chief Justice of India? Ramana. Yes, recently changed. Yes, and he's also from Andhra, so everybody here should know he was here. He was visiting. Hyderabad, so most of you must have read about him. And who is the Chief Election Commissioner? Yeah. Who is the Chief Election Commissioner? Because Again, it's important for you to know because there are these important elections coming up. The UP election is coming. So the chief election commissioner will be uh, very much in the news. The chief election commissioner of India is Sushil Chandra. Very good. Sushil Chandra is the chief election commissioner. Okay. Right. So this is as far as the important people are concerned. You know, the names. Again, I'm saying that I'm not telling you all the names. I'm giving you some names that I think are important. Are there other names that are important? Yes. You have to decide how many of these names you should remember. But these few that we have discussed, these you should definitely remember. Excellent, Amjad. Assam, Mizoram dispute is also very important. But you know, the problem is that dispute is very controversial. So, and all these exams, they don't ask controversial questions. They might, you should still know, but you know, they usually avoid that. So, but you know, you should know why the Assam dispute is happening. What is the problem? You know, because of what border dispute do these states? Why are they fighting with each other? The problem with these fault lines is that, you know, why does it happen now, and why does it happen inside a country? Instead of countries fighting for borders, now we have two states fighting for borders. And again, as Amjad says, because this is a Telangana law set, the Assam Mizoram issue might not be so important, but you know, you will have some questions from outside Telangana also. The more important question, as far as we are concerned, is going to be the water problem. Which river is under controversy right now? The Krishna River. Yes. Very good. Krishna River is. Telangana and Andhra Pradesh are fighting over the Krishna River. Abdul Sami is saying questions on Nobel Prize. Yes, that is possible, but it is. But you know, I'll be very surprised because the Nobel Prizes have been given long ago. Very difficult to remember those names, but if you can, then you should remember. Again, Mubin, the India-China conflict is very controversial. You know, because China has come and occupied so much of land in India and we are unable to fight them. It has become a very controversial thing, so nobody is talking about it. Neither the Prime Minister nor the newspaper, nobody is talking. So it is unlikely that it will be a question in the exam. The Khel Ratna Award was earlier called Rajiv Gandhi Award. Now it has become called the Dhyan Chand Award. As Majid keeps telling us, the Olympics are important. Where were the Olympics held? Which city? Tokyo. Right? Tokyo is where the Olympics. How many medals did India win? Total medals. Yes, it happened in 21. It should have happened in 20. So, one gold medal, Neeraj Chopra. 2 silver medals. Now the important question is who won the 2 silver medals? Can you tell me who won the 2 silver medals? Okay, in what? Dahiya won in what? Dahiya in no, Sindhu won a bronze. So Channu in weightlifting, Dahiya in wrestling, yes. And then the bronze, PV Sindhu got one. The Indian hockey team got another. What else? Who else got a bronze? Sindhu badminton, men's hockey, very right. And there is, who else got a bronze? Yeah, 1 gold, 2 silver, 4 bronze. Who won the 4 bronze medals in India, from India? Ravi Kumar Dahiya silver, Bajrang Punia bronze medal, Lavlina won 1 more bronze in boxing, right? So, now that is a good question, Bahar, as to when, up to which date. You know, there is no good answer to your question. Your question is very good. Because you see, we don't know when the paper gets made. Sometimes the paper gets made very early. I have been, involved in some of these things, and sometimes what happens is that in June itself we have made the paper and locked it up. But sometimes the paper can get made even on the 20th of August. So to be on the safe side, I would advise all of you that you should be aware of everything that happens on the 23rd of August also. It is good for you. It is good for you to stay aware of everything that happens till the day of the exam. Okay? So keep reading the newspaper every day. That is all you have to do. So even now, for the next 10 days, you should keep reading the newspaper. Don't stop reading the newspaper thinking that it is over. So Zamir, changing in the names of cities is also very controversial. It is very unlikely that you will get any answer. And in any case, after changing Ayodhya or Agra, or did he change Agra? After changing Allahabad and whatever, there has been no real change that has happened. So don't worry about that issue. Yeah, land legislation, Dharni portal, these are important issues. The irrigation projects are important issues. Jammu and Kashmir. Again, Jammu and Kashmir is very controversial. So the only thing that can happen is that, something on Article 370, something on Jammu and Kashmir becoming union territory. That can be asked. Otherwise, more than that, it becomes very political. Dilip Kumar died, right? But there is very little that you can ask about Dilip Kumar. But be ready. You might have some question that is coming from there. So there is one set of points that you make when you talk about current affairs. Let us go to health. Just a second. Let us go to healthcare. In healthcare, obviously there are several issues that are important. And so the first issue that Mustafa is pointing out is the issue of vaccines. How many vaccines are available in India? Which are the three, Ashish? Amjad, which are the four? Amjad says Covishield. Who manufactures Covishield? AstraZeneca, Serum Institute. Wait. Shabbir is right. Covishield is manufactured by Serum Institute under a license from AstraZeneca. And Bharat Biotech manufactures Covaxin. The third vaccine that is available is the Russian vaccine called Sputnik. Yeah. What is the website called where you go and register for taking a vaccination? COVID. Right. Yeah. Yeah, Majid is talking about an app, and that is called the Arogya Setu app. What does it do? What does the Arogya Setu app do? Yeah. What is the Arogya Setu app? It tracks COVID patients. Okay. What are the various tests that are available for testing COVID? RT-PCR. What does it mean? Yeah. Because this is one question that you can get. The RT-PCR test is actually something that is, RT stands for real time PCR test. PCR is polymerase chain reaction. A polymerase chain reaction test, or what is called a PCR test, is used for anything that is any disease that is caused by either bacteria or virus. Okay, and RT is real time, which means that it is something that is caused, that can be done very quickly. Okay, it is 6:50 now, and we can take a small break for the adhan will happen anytime now. So we'll take a quick break, but just remember that the rapid antigen test, which is a very popular test, is something that is available for testing COVID patients. So the most common test is called the RT-PCR. Okay. Thank you, Yunus. Thank you for saying I have a lot of knowledge. Yeah, that is part of my job. But we will just come back. Can you all come back by 7:05? Right, exactly 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
और घर में
All right. I hope you are back. Oh, okay. Majid attended my program on citizenship. Very good, Majid. Thank you very much. We just got out a book on the citizenship issue. And that is again something that might be important for all of you. All right. So I assume that most of you are back. And therefore we can move on. You want to get the link for what, Mubin? Oh, the webinar. Okay, I will see if that is available. Just remind me next time. There was a recording, so I'm sure there is that it is available somewhere. So let us therefore move on. What is it that there? What is the new issue that we should discuss in the current affairs? Now, as I said that because we are discussing the law set, while current issues are important, all issues are important. The law-related issues are even more critical. So one of the important things that has happened last year is the labor law. Okay. Have you heard at all about the labor laws, the labor law changes? Anybody has heard about the labor law amendments that has happened? Which labor laws? No. I sent you my link of my article. You should read that. That will tell you some background on the labor law. But basically, what we have done is that we have amended the various labor laws and collapsed all of them into 4 codes. And that is what is the new labor code, as it is called. In that there are several issues that are important. And one of those issues is that is really critical for you to know is that is the issue on in the labor code. The big issue is the issue of, let me write it for you, of a minimum wage. Now, what should be the minimum wage that anybody should get? That is the question that the labor law is asking. No, there is no answer, Fazal. You know, the labor code doesn't give any answer. That is the problem. Because you see, the debate is that should the minimum wage be the same in every state or should it be different? At the moment, it is very different. Every state has a different minimum wage, because you can appreciate that somebody in Bombay versus somebody in a small village in Chhattisgarh, should they get the same wage, especially if it is a minimum. So the labor code talks about several of these changes and talks about how these changes, these labor law changes have to be changed or have to be amended to make the labor market more flexible. What are these four labor laws? These four labor, or they are called labor codes, they have replaced 29 central laws. And the four labor codes are one on social security, the other on safety and health, the third is on industrial relations, and the fourth is on wages. Okay. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. So what happened was that there are several laws that govern labor in India, and some of them are very old. For example, the Factories Act is 1948. The Plantation Act is 1951. Some laws are even before. The Boilers Act, for example, is 1920 or so. A lot of these laws have now been simplified, and they have made converted into four laws. So all the laws that dealt with safety, which were laws like plantation worker, dock worker safety, Mines Act, they've all now become one act and one code called the Occupational Safety Code. The second set of laws that were on social security, those also have become condensed and now become one law called the Code on Social Security. This includes provident fund, this includes pensions, this includes maternity benefits and all of that. The third is the Industrial Relations Code. Industrial Relations Code includes all the laws on trade unions, on salary revisions, on the conditions of work and so on. And the final thing is on Code on Wages. That Code on Wages tells us how much should be paid, what should be the method of calculating wages, and what should be the minimum wage. Okay. So this is another big area that we saw changing last year, and that is why these laws are important to be studied. Okay, that you need to understand why these laws have been changed and which laws have been changed. I told you that there are very many laws, but what has happened is that these laws are now being condensed into four laws. Okay. That is the other current affair issue that we should all, that you should all know. Various provisions have been made. One is that work now can be contractual. There can be fixed term contracts. And the government of Assam has allowed employers to give 5-year contracts. There is no need of giving anybody full-time employment for a lifetime. You can just give fixed 5-year contracts. So these are the kind of labor law changes that we have seen effective, that were put into effect last year. There are, how many kinds of labor are there in India? So there are two major classifications of labor. One is called organized labor and other is called unorganized labor. In the rest of the world, it is called formal employment and informal employment. What is the difference? Formal employment is where people get employed against a contract. That you are employing me, you give me a contract saying that I have to do so much work. Against that, you will pay me so much money. I have to come at 9 o'clock, I have to go at 5 o'clock, I will get a holiday on Sunday, I will get 10 days holidays every year. That is a formal contract. So the formal workers or the organized sector workers all get a salary contract. Whereas the unorganized sector has no contract. You know, when I join your dhaba or I become your driver, do you give me a contract? No. You say, come tomorrow. What time, sir? 6 o'clock in the morning. When do I go back home? I don't know. You can keep me till 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You can keep me for 10 days and throw me out. You can keep me for 10 years and throw me out. These kind of workers are called unorganized workers or informal workers. In India, 93% of the workforce works in the informal sector. Okay? In the informal sector. 93% workers have no contract. That is why we say that India has a very large informal economy. Are you following what I'm saying? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So given that situation, there are a number of laws that that you need to focus on, like the Bonded Labor Act, the Payment of Wages Act. These are all the various laws that you come into as far as the labor code is concerned. Now, there was another very important law that was passed very quickly. You know, in the last few days, there was one law that was passed in this parliament session. And those laws, in that, there was, you all talked about the OBC Constitutional Amendment Act, that is, you know, obviously very important. But there was one law that was passed, which is a significant law as far as the economy is concerned. And that law, one of you mentioned it, is the Taxation Law Amendment Act. Now that Taxation Law Amendment has made retrospective taxes, has done away with retrospective taxes. That is one of the big issues that was raised and that was passed. But to people like me, there was another law that was passed that is a very important economic legislation. Can anyone guess, in the last 5-6 days, there was one law passed that in this whole furor that was going on in the assembly, in the parliament, there was one law passed that, as far as the economy is concerned, is a very critical law. let me give you the clue that this has to do with the entire problem of NPAs. Let me ask that question again. Ask this to you. What is an NPA? In the last 5 or 6 years, the one big problem has been, very good, Shabir. NPA is a non-performing asset. What does it mean? In which sector do you hear of this term called non-performing assets? Excellent. What does it mean? What does a non-performing asset mean? It is the biggest problem as far as banking is concerned. Excellent. Very well done, Majid. So, a non-performing asset is a debt that has gone bad. Is when your debtor does not pay 2 or 3 installments together, then that becomes an NPA. Why do people not pay? Some are cheats, but some people don't pay because they cannot pay. Their business is not doing well. What should you do with businesses that are not doing well? That is what this new law talks about. You know, somebody's shop is not running, cannot pay back the debt. What do you do with her? How do you tackle that issue? This is a provision in the Indian law that never existed earlier. And it was one change that, yes, Fazal. Lot of people face that. You know, the business is bad. There is no return on the business. But the bank is standing outside your gate wanting money. How will you give that money? You don't have that money. What is that situation called? When your business is not getting you enough money to pay back your debt? No, not hand to mouth situation. Insolvency. Very good. It is called, actually the term that is used for businesses that go bust is called bankruptcy. So in India, we never had a bankruptcy law. Now we have passed what is known as a IBC, the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code. This is a very significant change that has happened. The Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code. Okay. What is the difference between insolvency and bankruptcy? When Fazal tells us that I don't have money to pay you, that is what is called insolvency. When the businessman says that I don't have money to pay you, that is called insolvency. So what do you do when Fazal says that I have borrowed your money, but I can't pay because I'm not earning any money? What do you do to Fazal? You take Fazal to the court, where Fazal has to prove that he is indeed insolvent, that he is not using this as an excuse to not pay you back. Once he proves it, then the court issues an order which is called the bankruptcy order. So insolvency is when I say that I don't have money. Bankruptcy is when the court says that I don't have money. Understand that difference? For lawyers, it is an important decision. So in the bankruptcy case, you can't declare to everybody that I am bankrupt. Bankruptcy is not what you declare. Bankruptcy is what the court declares. Insolvency is what you declare. So the court says that yes, Fazal is insolvent. Fazal has become bankrupt. So what we should do now is that we should sell Fazal's car, we should sell Fazal's house and use that money to pay back his debtors in the following ratio. Yes, that is right. Anil Ambani claimed that he had become insolvent. And then he went around, buying ships and cars and whatever. So that is where the court comes in and says that no, you have the resources, you have the assets, and you will therefore repay the debtors in the particular manner that is what is known as a bankruptcy law. That is what is known as bankruptcy. So under the IBC, what we are saying is that the IBC now is saying that if there is an insolvency, then the debtors should be paid back within 1 year. Actually, it says within 330 days. Otherwise, what used to happen earlier was that there was another law in India, and that law was called the SICA. I don't know if anyone has heard of this law. Has anyone heard of this? Basar, you are right. Creditors have to be paid back. Corporate debt has to be returned. So the SICA was a law that said that talked about Sikh industries. It was called the Sikh Industrial Companies Act. So if you were a Sikh industry, you went to court, you proved that you were Sikh, and the court said at that time, it said that if you are Sikh, then you should go to another organization called the BIFR. Has anyone heard of BIFR? Yeah. The BIFR was earlier a board, an agency in the finance ministry, and it was called the Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. The Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. What happened? You went, the court said you don't have money, okay, you go to BIFR. And it told the BIFR that Fazal does not have money to run the organization. He is not ready to pay back his loans. Therefore, the BIFR must take over and give him money to return to his debtors and ensure that the company again becomes a viable company. This was the situation for the last 40 years or so. But Fazal came and said that, I cannot run the company. There are no buyers for my product. Even if you give me money, I cannot run. I just want to get out of this business. And that is why we needed a insolvency and bankruptcy code for companies. Yes, that is right, Abdul. So we needed a code that will allow companies to go to court, declare themselves insolvent, get a bankruptcy proceedings going, and wind up their businesses. In the last few days, this has been a very significant change that we have seen in the banking code, and this was one of the major bills that was passed in the recent days as far as the new laws are concerned. There were several other bills passed. There was a juvenile justice bill that was passed, where some very important changes have been effected. Who are juveniles? Anybody who knows what do you mean by a juvenile? Yeah.
Under 18 children.
Correct. So what happens to under 18 children who do any who are arrested or who do something wrong? So what do you do about juvenile justice? The Juvenile Justice Act earlier was an act of the year 2000. Now the new law, the amendment that we passed just now, changes it to in some ways. What it does is that that for the first time, it gives imprisonment to juveniles. Earlier, anyone who was below 18, if he or she commits an offense, then she was put into a juvenile home, and then after some time, he was let free. What this amendment has done is that if a juvenile person commits a serious offense, they divided offenses into serious offense, heinous offense, petty offenses. Then serious offenses will have punishment prescribed, which could be up to 7 years. So that is one of the changes that has been made, and it is a very controversial change because all over the world the belief is that children don't commit offenses of their own, and therefore they should not be punished. But in India, we have this situation, especially because in the recent past there have been some very serious cases where some juveniles have been caught. So now there is a big debate on whether they should be allowed or not. It still has not been passed by the Rajya Sabha, but in the Lok Sabha it has been passed, and it's a very contentious bill. So you should know what juveniles means, and what Juvenile Act and what Juvenile Amendment Act has to say as far as punishment is concerned. All right, so this is as far as the recent legislation. There are several others. As I said, there are several other acts that were passed, but they are not so important because they were, the Finance Bill was passed, which happens in any case. The Epidemic Diseases Act was amended because of COVID. There's 2 or 3 universities that were set up. Some university that we have now in Ladakh, the Central Sanskrit University Bill, and several like that. Some very simple bills that are really not so important, but these few bills are very critical, and they were passed recently. Now, the other important issue that is important for current affairs now. The legal issue is obviously very important for all of you because you are writing the law entrance exam or the law set. But beyond that, there are other issues also that you have to focus on. Now, what is the other issue that you have to, that you should look at? What are the current affairs that are important for you? Some of these issues are important because of policy matters. So before we go into other things, let us look at the some of the policy issues that were announced in the recent times. So one important policy issue that was announced by the central government was something called in the health context. In the health context, because as we discussed, health became a very serious issue. In the health context, one of the most important changes that we found in the recent past was a program called the PMJ. The PMJ, PMJAY. What is that? Everyone has heard of something called, I'm typing it there, called the Ayushman Bharat scheme. I'm sure you've heard of that. The Ayushman Bharat scheme contains something called the Prime Minister's Jan Arogya Yojana. Jan Arogya Yojana is is the scheme that provides healthcare to common people. So one program under health was the Jan Arogya Yojana. The other was something called the Jan Aushadhi Kendra scheme. Aushadhi, what does Aushadhi mean in Hindi? Anyone who knows what Aushadhi means?
Medicine.
Medicine, very good. So the Jan Aushadhi scheme said that medicines will be provided in all districts by 2024. So in health, the 2 or 3 names that you should remember is the Ayushman scheme. What is the Ayushman scheme? The Ayushman scheme is an insurance-backed scheme that states will provide insurance cover to everybody. So you fall ill, then your health bills will be taken care of by the insurance provided to you. In health, there is a term called OOP, which has become very used in the last 1 year because of COVID. Does anyone know what OOP means in the healthcare segment? Majid is right that compensation to COVID victims is another important area that you should look at. You know, the Supreme Court passed an order saying that everybody should be paid 4 lakhs, those who have died of COVID. It was an unprecedented judgment, and the government lost that. But in the healthcare sector, there is a concept called the OOP. The OOP is an important. Yeah. Say that, Sajid. No. Okay. OOP means out-of-pocket expenditure. Okay. Out-of-pocket expenditure. What does out-of-pocket expenditure mean? Out-of-pocket expenditure means that if I fall ill and I go to hospital, and in the hospital my bill comes to 1 lakh rupees. How do I pay that 1 lakh? Yes, Ashish, out-of-pocket expenditure. How do I pay that 1 lakh? Some of us go to our bank, withdraw 1 lakh and give it to the hospital. But there are various schemes, right? Arogya Shri, this RSBY. There are various schemes that are available, or sometimes as Aisha Siddiqa says, it is insurance, and sometimes it is the employer who pays. So there are various ways in which our health expenditure gets financed by somebody else. But that part of health of your bill that you have to pay in cash. You see, if your bill is 1 lakh, and even if your employer is paying you 75,000, or the insurance is paying you 80,000, 20,000 you have to pay. That amount of money that you pay in cash to settle a hospital bill is called out-of-pocket expenditure. In India, and that is the tragedy of India's healthcare, in India, the biggest problem we have is that there is very high out-of-pocket expenditure. Very few of us are covered by insurance. Very few of us have any employer paying for us. Very few of us have health security schemes. Most of us pay money from our own pocket. Most of the money. So if you average it out, then out-of-pocket expenditure in India is nearly 65% of the total expenditure. So if I am covered by insurance, if I'm covered by social security, if my bill is 1 lakh rupees, 65,000 rupees I have to pay. This doesn't happen in any other country. In most other countries, for example, in the United Kingdom, out-of-pocket expenditure will be 5%. In the US, it will be 12%. But in India, out-of-pocket expenditure is very high, and that is why the government passed this or moved this scheme called the Ayushman scheme, where the out-of-pocket expenditure will be brought down. That was the biggest reason for Ayushman Bharat, and under Ayushman Bharat, it was proposed that there will be a PM Jan Arogya Yojana, which means that There will be several hospitals that will be built across the country, and there will be the Jan Aushadhi scheme where medicines will be given at very cheap rates or for free to patients who fall ill. The other major policy change that was announced in recent times was called the NEP. How many of you have heard of the NEP? I've already talked about it once. So when I talked about Pokhriyal and Devendra Pradhan, the minister changing. The NEP stands for anyone? The NEP stands for the National. Come on, I want somebody to answer. Yes, Ashish. The National Education Policy. What did the National Education Policy say? It made some 4 or 5 big changes, and those big changes you should know. Firstly, it said that there will not be any Ministry of HRD. There will be only a Minister of Education. So that is the one change that has already happened. We changed the name of the ministry to National Ministry of Education. We became very enthusiastic, and we changed the minister also. We threw out the minister and got a new fellow. The next thing that the NEP says is that our old system, which was based on the 10+2+3 model, right? All of us, people like me, studied in the 10+2+3 model, which means that 10 years of school, 2 years after school, and then 3 years in college. That was the NEP, that was the education policy that all of us followed when we were studying. Most of you also did 10 plus, at least 10+2. The new policy that the NEP says is that there will be, that it won't be 10+2+3, but it will be 5+3+3+4. That is the big change in the education policy. That school will start at age 3. In our times, you went to school at age 5. Now you go to school at age 3. You have one set of primary education for 5 years. Then you have a pre-secondary for 3 years. Then a secondary school for 3 years and a high school for 4 years. So NEP has changed the 10+2+3 to 16+4. So you will study 16 years in school, and then you will do 4 years in college, or 3 years. Mostly it will be a 4-year program. This becomes like the international norm. The third thing that the NEP did was it abolished in higher education, it abolished one degree, and that degree is called the MPhil degree. This MPhil degree was something you did before doing a PhD. So now the NEP is saying that no, you can do a postgraduate program and go straight to do a PhD. You don't have to do an MPhil. Yeah. Yes. Fazal, the new one is 5+3+3+4. And then it talks about other things. It says that education should be multidisciplinary. It should be research based. The evaluation pattern should change. Teachers should be taught. B.Ed courses should be a 3-year course instead of a 1 year or 2-year course. So it makes several other changes, but the big changes it makes is that it says that there should be a 5+3+3+4 system that should come in the high school in the new education policy in India. It talks about what language to be used. The Prime Minister came out a few days ago and spoke about the new education policy, and he said how engineering education now has to be taught in local languages. So you will have engineering courses in Hindi and in Telugu and in Marathi. Engineering, that is what the Prime Minister said, but the new education policy said that primary education should be in the mother tongue. This is one of the most contentious parts where everybody is wondering that should we move towards English education? Like in Telangana, in the Telangana government has ensured that all these social, the schools for the poor and the schools for the minorities are English medium schools, whereas the NEP is now saying that no, they should all be local language. And the final policy that I want you to remember, it's an old policy. It's a 15-year-old policy now, but it's because it is the biggest policy, the biggest outlay that is given, about 60,000 crores that is allotted to it. It is called the NREGA. What does it stand for? It stands for Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. What does it say? The NREGA, as it was very famously called, or the MG NREGA as it is called, is a scheme where in rural areas people are given work for at least 100 days of the year, right? That if you don't have work, you get work for at least 100 days. All rural households, adult members can go and do unskilled work for at least 100 days. The demand is that the same should be available for urban India also after the whole migrant crisis happened. But right now, the MG NREGA, which is run by the Ministry of Rural Development, it provides 100 days of work to everybody who wants to work in an unskilled capacity. Guaranteed employment of 100 working days. That is right. Right. So the MG NREGA is a central government scheme that is implemented by state governments. And yeah, the UPA 1 passed it 2005, and then it was continued. Prime Minister Modi had first said that it is a big tragedy, that it is one of the worst schemes that we have, and then he made it one of the biggest schemes by giving it extra money and saying that it is one of the strongest anti-poverty measures that we have. So anyway, that keeps changing. So remember that the NREGA, which was originally called the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act or National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, now is called the MG NREGA. What is it? It is what is known in economics as a cash transfer. It is a cash transfer. You come and work in the village pond or in the village forest area, and at the end of the day, we will give you the minimum wage, whatever is the minimum wage in that state. That is what is called. It's called a direct cash benefit transfer. Right? This is a new term that is coming up, which is called a DBT, direct benefit transfer. That the transfer is not done indirectly. The government doesn't give it to somebody to give it to you. The government gives it straight into your bank account. That is what is called a direct benefit transfer. Today, these days, and this is the final point I want to say, what we are discussing is another aspect called a UBI. In 2009, in the economic survey, the chief economic advisor then, whose name was Kaushik Basu had suggested that everybody in the country, not only Fazal or Majid, but everybody, including Mukesh Ambani, should get a universal basic income. Everybody should get by the state. Everybody's bank account should get a certain sum of money every month. At one time, people calculated that it was 1,200 rupees, but it never happened. But the question that we are now all posing, especially after COVID and after the migrants walked back home, everybody said that we cannot continue this situation where people are completely rendered helpless because of some exogenous factors like COVID. Everybody should get a basic amount of money to be able to eat 2 meals a day, send children to school, and pay for the house or whatever they need. That is what is known as a universal basic income. In some countries, a universal basic income has already been started. In India, we are still discussing and debating. That will be the new issue that will come up in the next few years. All right. So I don't know about you, but I am tired. We have discussed a number of issues. If you can remember a few of them, I will be only too happy. As I said, that for current affairs, there is nothing like teaching current affairs. There is nothing that I can give you that you don't have access to already. All that I have said, you can Google and find out. But what I want to do is to focus your attention to some topics that I think are important. Topics that are contemporary, topics that are non-controversial, topics that are based on the law. And that is why these topics are important for you. In that, you have to figure out, you have to guess what questions will emerge from those topics. And that is what I wanted to tell you, that if you look at farm laws, what are the issues in the farm laws that can come in the multiple choice questions? If you look at labor law, what is the question that will come out of labor law? If you are looking at new education policy, if you are looking at the NREGA, then what are the issues that you need to highlight? That is what I want to help you with. I want to point you out. All right. So thank you very much. Those of you who listened to me and gave me attention, thank you very much for that. Yes, Anwar, we will have more classes. In fact, I think that if Tabassum allows me to, I will take a class tomorrow. And then we will continue. We have 2 or 3 more sessions where we'll try and cover as much as we can. All right. So wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm sure that you will all do very well because it is an exam that is an important exam. But you are all very bright, young, hardworking students. I'm sure you will do well. So over for the day today, relax a little bit before you go back to study more. And then we will meet tomorrow at the same time. All right. Chalo. Good night.
Thank you very much, sir.
Best. Thank you.
Chalo.